You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Don't forget to log on www.rainieravenue radio.world.
Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. It's me, Tony B., your host, for this week's broadcast of the impact of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities. We've got a Stay Healthy Streets show. If you don't know what that means, we're going to provide you with all the information that you need. This is a unique partnership between the Department of Transportation and then also Seattle Parks and Recreation. And I think it was back in April and May, over 20 miles of neighborhood greenways were upgraded to Stay Healthy Streets, and we're open to people walking, rolling, and biking. Neighborhood greenways are residential streets that were identified through past public engagement with enhanced safety features like speed bumps and stop signs and crossing improvements at major streets. And joining me, let's see here, I think that we have Summer Jawson. Summer, are you on with us?
I am. Thanks for having me.
Summer from the Seattle Department of Transportation, and I think that we've got Ethan Bergerson joining us as well. Ethan, are you with us?
I am here. Thanks for having me.
All right, then Rachel Schulkin. Is Rachel with us?
She is trying to log in right now.
Okay, Rachel is trying to log in. So Summer, civil engineer at Seattle Department of Transportation. Ethan, media relations lead. Stay Healthy Streets. I talked a little bit about it, but impact of the coronavirus is what we're talking about here. Let's talk about Stay Healthy Streets and how this came about and what are Stay Healthy Streets?
Well,
Ethan, or Summer, whichever one of you.
Yeah, you did a great job of giving us a little intro on them there. So Stay Healthy Streets came about with the coronavirus emergency when we were all in the initial weeks of the stay-at-home order, and we were spending more time in our homes and realizing that we had a need to get outside and exercise, walk our dogs, get to our bus stops and the places that we needed to go. But a lot of our cities streets either didn't have sidewalks, or the sidewalks we had were less than 6 feet wide, so it was making it really hard for people to provide social distance. And so we were able to add the street closed signs on about 20 miles of our existing neighborhood greenways and close those streets to cars and allow for people to walk and bike in the street and get recreation close to their home, take care of their mental health and their physical health, and stay safe and stay healthy during the initial stages of this pandemic. And we've had a really positive response from people getting out and enjoying that in their neighborhood. And they are still open for vehicles who need to make a delivery on the street. You can still get your trash picked up or your takeout delivered, whatever you need to have happen on the street. But we just ask that people who need to drive on the street go slow and look out for each other and share the road.
All right, now, I'll repeat this because this is going to be a lot for people to remember before I get into some more things. And I think what I have here is the list of communities where this is taking place. 13 different locations. Is that correct? These are the 13. I got that right?
13 sounds about right.
Okay. Aurora, Licton Springs, Ballard.
Yep.
Beacon Hill gets two. Beacon Hill North and Beacon Hill South.
Well, Beacon Hill has a neighborhood greenway that crosses Beacon Ave. And first we started just with a section between Beacon Ave and the I-90 trail, the Mountains to Sound Greenway Trail. Mm-hmm. And then we heard from people we wanted to open that up and continue down farther south. So it kind of came at two different phases.
Since we did that for Beacon Hill, now I got to go back and let you talk about the other communities too. Aurora, Licton Springs, where is that? And talk about that a bit.
So Aurora, Licton Springs is connection to the inner urban north, and it's kind of on either side of Aurora, around between Seattle Community College and the Greenwood area, or the North Seattle Community College and Greenwood area.
And Ballard, where in Ballard?
On 17th Avenue Northwest. It goes from Crown Hill down to about 58th Street.
And Bell Street says here between 1st and 5th Avenues.
Yeah, that's the Bell Street Park that we've been on a long-term partnership with the Parks Department, remaking that street into a pedestrian zone, and it connects to some bike lanes that we just installed down in that neighborhood as well.
And you may or may not have heard me announce that Rainier Avenue Radio has expanded, and we've recently got property in the Central District, and we are located on 23rd and Columbia, and I'm just talking about the Central area, and Columbia is one of these streets, right?
It is, yeah. Have you been out to try it?
I have.
What do you think?
I think, it's a tight squeeze for cars, and so I can see why you made that a stay healthy street, and I've seen people out there enjoying it without having to it just creates more space for social distancing.
That's when I've heard that a lot of people are really liking walking along Columbia, because it ends down at 12th, 14th in that area where there's a lot of good restaurants. And I've heard a lot of people saying they like to go and walk into the Central District, and there's a lot of good restaurants off of the Columbia one, just 1 block away or something. And so it's been a good route for people to do their own food pickup.
Yeah, it's just about a block north of Cherry, I believe.
Yep.
Block north of Cherry. Delridge Highland Park.
So that is a route that kind of wiggles around because the streets aren't very continuous over there, but it's off 17th Southwest and 21st Ave Southwest. It's kind of a north-south route through the Delridge area.
And Golden Gardens.
That's another one of our partnerships with the Parks Department, in working with the Parks Department to reduce the amount of crowding that they're experiencing at Golden Gardens Park. And we've worked to close one of the access streets there so that people who want to access the park by walking or biking, rolling, have more space, because right now previously there's no sidewalks on that street. So the only way you could get down to it was on a really narrow staircase. And we heard a lot of people that were saying they really wanted to access the park, but couldn't access it with social distancing on the way there.
And Lake City, 2 locations, 27th Avenue Northeast and 37th Avenue Northeast. And then Mount Baker, Columbia City, Hillman City.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of neighborhood greenways that run. There's a Rainier Valley neighborhood greenway that runs kind of between Rainier Avenue and MLK, and it kind of winds through the neighborhood streets there. And so there's a north-south neighborhood greenway along that, and then east-west, also going from MLK over to Seward Park Ave.
And Othello, Rainier Beach.
So yeah, so they're all connected
Okay.
on that one. So we have some different names because they go through different phases, but yeah, it's all in that same network.
And Wallingford?
Wallingford is kind of like Columbia. It's 1 block off of the main street and 44th up there.
And West Seattle High Point.
So that one is a loop through the High Point neighborhood. It connects from the dense housing in High Point over to some of the parks by High Point Elementary, and then runs along 34th.
All right. Is Rachel with us?
I think Rachel is in the waiting room,
Yes,
or the lobby of this call.
sounds like she's actually getting a message saying she's waiting to be let in.
Okay, so the message is saying she's waiting to be let in, and my producer is saying there's no one in the waiting room. Well, we're going to keep moving forward, and hopefully we'll be able to get Rachel in here. So I just wanted to go over that so that folks got an idea of all the communities that were involved and impacted this. So the big thing is, how were these decisions made? Was there community involved? And how did you come up with the areas and locations that you have now, that are now Stay Healthy Streets?
So the community was really involved with selecting the neighborhood greenways. and helping us find the routes that worked for those, that connected people to their business districts, their community centers, the places where they were starting from or wanted to be. So all of those have gone through, a 6-month to 2-year outreach process. Installing the Stay Healthy Streets happened really fast in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we're coming back out now to talk to people and listen, hear how they're using the street, what's working, what isn't working. And the mayor has announced that we're going to make 20 miles of the 24 miles we've got out there now. 20 miles of neighborhood greenway will get this as a permanent upgrade. So we want to hear from people about where those should go, if we've got them on the right places now, or if there's a different street that would work better in the future.
All right, and I'm going to give away a number here for anyone who has any questions about this, 206-290-9685. If you want to find out where you can bike, roll, walk, play safely and in your community, 206-290-9685 or 206-290-U5. That's a lot of numbers to remember. YOU5, 206-290-U5. Now, you said, again, this starting today. Let's run that back a little bit. And this goes through starting today through September 8th. I heard you say permanent, but let's define what that means.
So so today we're starting out on Lake Washington Boulevard, and we've got two kinds of streets out there. One is the most of them over the 20 miles are on neighborhood greenways. Those are those mostly residential streets, smaller like Columbia, that go through your neighborhood and get you to your schools and your parks. Now we've also got a handful of keep moving streets. The names aren't as important as the difference in what they're doing. And what we were talking about at Golden Gardens, we've done that in partnership with the Parks Department to address a real specific problem about crowding in the park. And so today we're starting out on Lake Washington Boulevard, and we're going to be opening that street up for walking and biking and rolling. And we did a pilot of that back in June for a week, 5-day weekend, and heard from a lot of people that experienced the street and really enjoyed getting to be out there and have space to social distance. The park sidewalk that goes in between the road and the waterfront is really narrow through there, and people just aren't able to practice social distancing safely on that sidewalk. So we're really excited to partner with the Parks Department and open this up through Labor Day so that people can experience the waterfront in a safe way.
All right, so the Lake Washington Boulevard closure starts today, and this is 24 hours a day. It won't be like you can roll through there at night. It's 24 hours a day, right?
24 hours a day, yeah.
Which means that folks have access to bike, walk, roll, and safely social distance if it gets crowded, because we're expecting some nice weather this weekend.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of people out there enjoying their waterfront.
And how do you, or do you notify the members or the folks who are residents of these communities? You mentioned that there was input in each community. Was there a meeting, or how do you let folks know who are the residents of the communities that these not only are available, but also that they need to be conscientious about where they need to drive if they need to get home, and they see signs and try to figure out, can I do this? Can I not do this? How does that all work?
Well, we've tried to add a lot of supplemental signs onto the standard street closed sign that you're familiar with. There's blue signs underneath them that try to give a better explanation of what the street is for, remind everyone to share the road with each other safely, stay 6 feet apart, and that people who have a reason to be on the street driving, they've got a house there, they need to make a delivery, we need to share the road with them as well.
Okay,
and
so the
for this, like Washington,
deliveries are okay. Let's say if someone, for whatever reason, can't get out of the house, but they need to have a meal delivered, that's okay. That's acceptable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We want to maintain access for everybody.
Ethan, I haven't heard from you. Ethan, you still there?
I am still here. I've just been listening to Summer. She's been doing such a good job of explaining it. Didn't want, but yeah, I'm here. I'm happy to talk too.
Okay, well, Ethan, why don't you join in on this conversation again as the um, media relations person? Let's talk about some of the feedback that you've been getting. As Summer talked about that a little bit, that that led to the point that we're at right now. Well, hey, this is something that that our communities enjoy. Let's talk about the feedback that you've been getting from this.
Well, yeah, that's a good question. And getting public feedback's been an important part of this because I think one of the challenges we've dealt with of the COVID period, which has been so challenging in so many different ways, has been there's been this real need to change the way things work. Stay Healthy Streets are a good example of that. At the same time that it's a difficult time to go and do the kind of community feedback and engagement that we used to do. Um, so when we first started doing these Stay Healthy Streets, it was really important to us that we had that chance to go and reach back, talk to the community, see how it was working. Some of the ways we've done that has been this community survey, which is still going on. We've also been getting a lot of positive feedback, especially from people who live in the areas with Stay Healthy Streets. People saying, "This is great. I've been able to go and teach my kid how to ride a bicycle or get out there and get some recreation that I would never felt comfortable with before." And
And,
it's still,
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, but still, it's really important for us to keep on listening and learning because as we do these, we hear from people that let us know something that might be an adjustment we need to make in order to make it work better.
Okay, and when you do things like this, there is a domino effect. So for Lake Washington Boulevard's closure, it does open up the street to a number of different people. But for the folks who live in the community, this is probably going to cause another problem, in that they won't be able to drive to Stan Sears Pits. They won't be able to drive to some of these locations where there's parking, and that parking is going to end up backing up in some of the communities. Is that something you've discussed with the community members, potential of increased traffic in their neighborhoods? And how are we dealing with that in regards to how this impacts some of the residents of this neighborhood, where people will now have to find other ways to get to the location, which means they're going to have to park in communities?
Well, again, it's really important that this is a new thing, and we want people to understand. If you live there, you're going to one of the businesses there, that's fine. This is an area where it's intended where we share the roads. The real difference is that people who are using this as a cut-through route, people who aren't necessarily going to the community, they just want to get, they're trying to get somewhere else. We're asking them to find another route. We go out there, we pay attention to what's going on. Data is really important to make sure it's working well. And so far we have seen that some of the things you're talking about have not been issues.
Mm-hmm.
I can jump in a little bit there on the Lake Washington Boulevard and Stan Sears Pits specifically. This is where I wish Rachel wasn't having so many connection issues. I feel like every meeting we have now has got one or the other. But so what we've seen out there is that all of the parking lots are closed. They've closed the parking lot at Seward Park, and they've closed the parking at Stan Sears because of the crowding in the parks. And we're really trying to support that. And the message that I've heard Rachel putting out to people is to please keep it small and simple. So, maybe you can't bring as much equipment with you as you would bring if you were going to be able to park right at Stan Sears. But maybe go with a smaller group, go with just the people you live with, the people who live in your building. And instead of having 40 people out for your grandmother's birthday party, keep it to 5 and have a smaller gathering move on, stay for a little while and then move on to another place. Keep it moving so that we can all enjoy the park safely.
Okay, and Ethan, I'm going to beg to differ with you. We are Rainier Avenue Radio, and so we do exchange and share information and connect with our community members. And the last time that this happened, there was an issue. Again, parking. Folks came from a lot of different places, and there was a lack of parking that was available. Now, the other thing about this, and we hope that there are no problems, but when people come, they get out there in a good mood. There's not always a hey, let's respect the neighborhood thing. With what we're going through right now and encouraging folks to social distance, and we do want people to behave, but is there a plan in place? Because I think what I heard you say that you haven't heard complaints. I heard complaints. One of the reasons why I'm doing this show now is specifically because of the folks who live and access Lake Washington Boulevard and who do live in that community, who want to know, is there going to be anything done just to kind of ensure while Lake Washington Boulevard is clear, you have more cars accessing that community on some of the smaller streets.
Yeah, and I have to admit, I misheard the question a little bit. I thought you were asking about a little further north. So again, I don't want to portray that. Again, I think it came back to the first question you asked me of, getting that community input is important, and it's something that we want to keep on listening to and keep on learning from.
So the question was, are you thinking about that? Is there anything that's in place that you can tell community members now? Because that's something that did happen. So are you proactively thinking, okay, this is something that's going to happen. Folks are going to want to drive to places that they can't access on Lake Washington Boulevard because there's no parking at Mount Baker Beach. There's no parking at Stan Sayers Pitts. There's no parking at Seward Park. There's no parking at again, some of the areas that there used to be parking at where folks could go to, and folks are parking back in the street and in communities, and there's increased traffic. Have you been thinking about how you would address that issue?
Sure. And I want to take a quick break from the conversation to just introduce Rachel was able to get in. So Rachel's our colleague from Seattle Parks and Recreation. So catching up.
I can answer that, Tony.
Okay.
So we did hear from a lot of people. We heard from over 600 people when we did our 5-day pilot. And I think the 5-day pilot was really exciting to some people, and we had a lot of people coming in to want to access that. So we've made some changes to the plan. We've added additional spots for ADA parking at the ends of the closure, so that people who are using a mobility device or have other mobility challenges can park closer to the closure. We've also added a lot of street closed ahead signs. That what I heard from people when I read through those comments was that it was really frustrating to get down to the end of this side street and then realize that you couldn't get where you were trying to go. And then it caused people to circulate around inside the neighborhood. So we're adding a lot more signs along Genesee specifically to let people know when you turn down this side street, you're going to run into a closure down at the end of it. And we hope that'll help mitigate some of this in the neighborhood. And I also think that by opening it up for a whole month and allowing the time for this to be spread out, that people will be able to come on days that work for them, and we'll have less of the circulation problems that, Bicycle Sundays have been a big event down in Rainier for years. They've been really popular, and we're not having them this year because of COVID, because of the crowding that happens with that. We had a 5-day pilot, and we saw a lot of people using the street. And I think that spreading this out over a month is going to give people a chance to access the street and not have to do it all in one day and all at one time. So hopefully we'll all get an opportunity to use it and enjoy it.
And Rachel, thank you for joining us on this conversation. And again, on Street Beat, this is how we get down. We have open, honest, frank conversation. Of course, this is a wonderful thing, but we also have to talk about how this is impacting our communities. And that was one of the things that I had heard about the Lake Washington Boulevard closure. Some folks weren't aware that it was happening. And again, there was that impact in the community. So I don't know how you do that through increased signage or just making folks aware how this also does impact the community when they come in. And the ADA parking is one thing that sounds like that's definitely an added bonus. One thing that I noticed, Rachel, is they finally cut the grass at Genesee Park. And just for folks again who are, was there a reason why grass wasn't being cut? Was it again the gathering of crowds and folks having informal parties and barbecues, or what was going on with that?
We have about 30% of our workforce who's in that high risk category, who's not able to report to public facing work. And at the time COVID hit, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. At the time COVID hit, we were about to hire our summer temps, which about double our workforce in the summer, and that we did not do that due to a hiring freeze that the city issued. So we are down significantly in grounds maintenance. So what does that look like? That looks like a significant reduction in mowing of parks. Our grounds crews are trying to get to parks about once a month and getting to parks that are more frequently used more often than that. But what we know is you're going to see some longer grass, you're going to see some more weeds, and you're not going to see the manicured parks that we typically see in the summer. And that's just an impact, kind of one of these ripple impacts that COVID is having on our parks and our community.
I appreciate you sharing that. That is something that folks do wonder, and I'm glad that we had the opportunity for y'all to come on here and discuss this. Again, my guests are from Stay Healthy Streets, Rachel Schulkin, Communications Manager for Seattle Parks and Recreation, Summer Jawson, Civil Engineer for Seattle Department of Transportation, and Ethan Bergerson, Media Relations Lead for the DOT as well. We're almost out of time here, but I do want to give each of you an opportunity for final words. And Rachel, we hadn't really had a chance to hear from you. Thank you for that explanation, or that answer to the question about the traffic impact on the communities around the Lake Washington Boulevard closure area. And Ethan, we'll start with you. If you have just final words you want to share with everyone about Stay Healthy Streets.
Sorry, I was muted. First of all, I want to thank you again for having us on. I think just in general, it's taken a step back looking at this really crazy time that we are in 2020. There's just been a lot of changes happening, and a lot of it has been incredibly challenging things to deal with. But with that said, what we're trying to do at the Department of Transportation is looking at how the needs of the community are changing, what some of the challenges people are dealing with. For example, the need to have places, more space to recreate, and figure out how we can be adaptable and flexible in order to address that.
All right, and I'm saving Rachel for last because we didn't get much time for her. So Summer, thank you for being on. Thank you for your explanations as well. And final words that you want to share with our audience right now.
Thanks for having us. I just want to say that we're here to listen, and I want to know what's working and what's not working. And if you've got one that you love and you want to nominate it to become permanent after the COVID pandemic, then to please reach out to us and let us know about that, because we really want to hear from you.
All right, and Rachel, last but definitely not least, thank you for the explanations about what's taking place at parks and how COVID is just impacting again, this domino effect in our communities. And I certainly want to give you an opportunity to share information with our communities before we say goodbye.
I'm grateful you're having us today, and I just am grateful that our partners at the Department of Transportation were able to make this happen in a time we did not feel like it was safe to pull together a bicycle Sunday that drew thousands of people from across the city to a one-day event, and we're able to provide that recreation access. One of the things I kind of want to leave people with is we have 485 parks in this city. I live in the South End. I'm over here near Lakewood Park, which is a small park, but a beautiful park. I love Othello Park. I love John C. Little Park. We have beautiful natural areas. We want to encourage you, don't go to the usual suspects. That's where you're going to find the most people. That's where you're going to need to be pretty vigilant about your mask wearing and your social distancing. Whereas you can find beautiful natural areas from Dead Horse Canyon to Cheesty Green Space to Coleman Park, places where you can get out there and be in nature within your own neighborhood. And so spread out and do your part to kind of keep our parks from being a place where COVID spreads. And then the last thing I got to say, because I have to say it every time I can in the summer, is water safety is not a joke. We've had 4 rescues from the water this week alone. We don't have lifeguarded beaches right now because those are spots of congregation. But But if you are not a strong swimmer, the lake is a challenging place to swim. Please don't do so if you don't need to do so. And if you feel that you can't help yourself, please make sure you're out there with other folks. Kind of buddy system approach. We have over 40 people who die in our region every year from water related incidents. That includes boats, that includes pools, that includes lakes. So that's a larger figure, but it is not something to take lightly, just hopping in the water.
All right. Again, thanks to all of our guests for joining us. Stay Healthy Streets, the Lake Washington closure begins today all the way through September 8th. Again, thank all of you for joining us and sharing this information. That's it. That's all the time that I have. That's going to do it for the kid. That is, we'll be back with you again next Friday to talk about the impact of the coronavirus and again, these ripple effects, these things that we keep finding out about what this is doing to us. It's not going away. And so we'll just have to keep making the adjustment. And so until next week, it's Tony B on Rainier Avenue Radio saying, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you are probably right. I'm out. Peace.